deliver what lawyers do. When we think about that in the context of both the idea of leadership skills and what the future of that looks like, and the potential of AI to handle vast quantities of data and vast quantities of routine tasks, does that give us any kind of hint as to what the lawyer of the future, equipped with generative AI, might look like?
Yes. To me, this isn't necessarily rocket science, right? Because to me, there is a reality that's out there right now that, most big firms are already engaging with, whether it be e-discovery tools or due diligence tools or contract drafting tools, contract management tools. There's just so many out there. You take any type of law that has had some kind of repetitive process-driven element to it. It is already being automated, whether it be the traditional machine learning or even other types of traditional automation, or most certainly most of them now within AI-powered element to them. That's already happening. What I will focus on to try and address your question is, how are we best harnessing those tools? At the moment, what we're struggling with within law firms is an idea of how to harness the expertise and the knowledge of multidisciplinary experts to actually be able to break down how to think through the processes at both an organization-wide level and how do we create integrated solutions? How do we actually weave everything together in a way that it makes it seamless? There is an incredibly siloed approach within most practice groups within law firms, and this is one of the key challenges that, generally speaking, they don't necessarily talk to each other. Processes, even in, really esteemed organizations, aren't necessarily particularly well documented or thought through with the current landscape in mind. And so there is a real need to involve multidisciplinary experts to really look at what the needs of the future are, map out what do these processes need to look like, how can they be modular, how can we make it so that we don't have a situation where we have certain processes that we've got ourselves stuck in a rut and we can't ever change them. We need to build in adaptability, flexibility, and a really strong sense of rigor around even just the basics around scope, statements of work, and how do we quantify them? How do we begin to measure the concept of measurement and continuous improvement is just really quite new to lawyers. They have had very simple ways of measuring output. It's been the billable hour for so long. You've got certain hierarchy of legal expertise. Obviously, you've got your NPS scores from clients, but it's really the billable hour. We make our revenue by charging a certain amount. We can measure it by how many hours. This is a totally different world now in terms of how different models of how clients will be expecting work to be chunked up and how they will be expecting to pay for work and what does value mean to them. It's a whole new world for how law firms need to approach the business of law.
So there seems to be an obvious point there around education. So not only the education of the people who are in law firms who may be implementing some of these things or maybe innovating around process or innovating around how they consider billable hours or what value they deliver to clients. But there's possibly also a customer or client education piece where, as they become more knowledgeable about what the capabilities are of AI, what they can get directly from the internet or what they can get directly in terms of advice from, and I'm not stating by any means that one should get advice from ChatGPT, but let's face it, we know people will usually go onto something like this, go on to do a Google search, or Bing or search engine of your choice, or ChatGPT or AI agents of your choice, and go and ask it before probably they go and engage with a solicitor. So if folks are doing that, their education level,
they've got lawyers in their pockets,
Yeah, exactly.
Who's
so they
to say
know
exactly
more.
the quality of the law that they're getting, but they're getting legal advice from their pockets, right?
But whether the advice is correct or whether the clients are educated in the law is one thing. But the other thing is how educated the clients are in their expectation of what can be done with artificial intelligence, because they will expect that the more forward-thinking or the better solicitors should already be using the types of technology that one has at one's fingertips.
Yes.
So there's a client education piece and potentially a solicitor education piece as well around skills and what do we know about AI. That kind of leads to this idea of potentially two ideas. So one is skills literacy, AI literacy, data literacy, and all of the things that need to come together for a law firm to be able to maximize the value they get from AI. But the other side of it is the governance side. So how does one appropriately implement some technologies for the sake of increasing value or maximizing competitive advantage or increasing some of the metrics that we might look at? So sales, revenue, volume, all of these things. So if we have a chat about both of those things, because in my world, in the human capital space and learning, some of these things are potentially the same as they would be for any other sector.
Yes.
So let's talk about governance.
Just a little bit more stark, I would say, in the legal world. Yeah, I think the level of conservatism and risk aversion is such that there has been traditionally a lack of readiness or certainly a reticence around automation and around modernization. That is a theme that I've definitely seen. So your question is about governance, and we could talk about a lot of the technical and structural aspects of governance, but obviously I'm here talking from a people lens, a leadership lens, mindset lens. If I think about the kind of primary barriers from a governance perspective in the legal sector around grappling with generative AI, I think about data. I think about the mess that it is in large global corporations and law firms in particular. This is not to say that within each client matter there isn't brilliant documentation and understanding and classification and an ability to really dig into what has happened for each client on each matter. I'm saying that when it comes to the business and how it runs itself and who makes decisions, who is accountable, how do the business processes flow from one important layer of information through to another in accordance with a set of governing principles around the decision-making structures in an organization. That is a really immature discipline in I'd say a number of global law firms in particular. I think even in-house teams, large in-house teams within big global corporations, even if you're looking at a sort of general counsel and their teams, CLOs, and what they're grappling with, even then it's also a major point across the legal sector is how do decisions get made? What kind of decision-making principles have we got right at the top? And how does it then flow and trickle through? And how can we delegate responsibilities around decision-making in a nimble way? That is a real challenge, I think, for law firms, where I have certainly seen there is a persistence, a real tenacity around this concept that, only those few people who are really vested with, really trusted at the top to make decisions are being called upon to make decisions about almost everything. It's there is definitely a bit of a fear-based culture around, well, I don't want to ever get blamed for making a mistake, so I'm going to seek the decision has to be made by someone at the top so that I can say, well, it wasn't me, So that, I'm talking about some of the more practical issues, but I'm also I'm bringing it back to mindset within the leadership landscape and the structure.
So